Hey Marcus, good evening, and hello to the whole Powell clan, kibbutz, whatever you guys call yourself. And I just wanted to take a minute to put a little video together. I could have took like 2 hours, 3 hours to go through all the events that you and I have been through over our careers, but I thought it might be kind of fun for the kids to hear maybe a couple of the older stories they probably may have heard in the past, maybe they haven't heard, but I won't take too much time, maybe 5, 8, 10 minutes, something like that. But I just wanted to wish you a very happy retirement and a very happy birthday. It's amazing that they would come together at the same time. So, when I was thinking about putting this video together, I thought about how long have I known Mark? So I Googled Prop 13, and Prop 13 was passed in 1978. So, for those of you that aren't aware, at that time I was the lead man in Anaheim running the warehouse. And Glenn Moore, who was the manager, came up to me and said, "Hey, I got this guy that my daughter kind of grew up with, and I'd like for you to interview him and possibly consider hiring." So I said, okay. So I remember that interview very well. Mark came in, and so one of the questions I always ask is, "Have you have any experience driving a forklift?" And Mark kind of looked at me and he says, I don't really drive forklifts. I'm better at like telling people what to do and when to do it and how to do it." And I said, "Well, okay. Well, as a favor to Glenn," I said, "Okay, well, I'll go ahead and hire this guy and we'll see what happens." So first week goes by, and most guys take like a couple weeks to learn the trim shapes and how many feet of tile are in a box and all the little ins and outs of working in the warehouse. Well, Mark was pretty good at that. He had all that down in a couple days. I think it was the second week I go out into the warehouse, and there's Mark, and he's like, "Hey, you, load that truck up over. Hey, pull that pallet down. I need some of that tile. Hey, you." I mean, he was like telling everybody what to do. I said, "I think this guy maybe has some management potential." So anyway, we kind of worked together for several months, and I don't know if you guys remember Prop 13, but Prop 13 was when they froze your property tax at the rate at which you bought the house, so your property tax would never go up. So all these cities were up in arms. Oh, we're going to lose all our income, and we're not going to be able to pay our people. And so Mark had actually gotten laid off from the city of Cypress. So 3 or 4 months down the road, the cities realized, well, we're not really gonna lose all our money. So they called Mark up and says, "Hey, Mark, we want to offer your job back." So Mark comes in my office and he sits down. He says, "I got to give you my 2 week notice." And I looked at him. I says, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, I got to give you my 2 weeks notice." Well, recognizing early on, and this is again 1978, that Mark had great management potential and the ability to move up in the company, I put my arm around his back and I said, "Come here, Mark." And we walked up to the manager's office. We were looking in from the warehouse, and there was a window in the back of Glenn Moore's office. I shouldn't use the name. There was a window in the back of the manager's office, and with my arm around him, I said, "Mark, you see that guy right there?" He says, "Yeah, I see him." And Glenn was like this in his chair. So I said, "That guy makes $60,000 a year." And Mark says, "Yeah, so?" I says, "If he can do it, we can do it." And I think, I'm not going to get all religious on you here and all that, but I think that someone from above, probably God, at that moment took us in a direction that impacted us for the rest of our lives, and impacted us, I think, in a very positive way. When I look at what you were able to do and where you got to and how you got there, Mark, I think we were both pretty fortunate that God was in control that day. So anyway, I just want to say, in those early days, we had a lot of fun. I remember playing co-ed softball with you and Lawrence, and this was long before Sarah, Jonathan, and Kelsey were even thought about. So seeing you guys go through that whole process of building a family and so forth. That was just really awesome to be close to you guys at that time. So I wanted to tell a story about your bachelor party, but I thought it would be better if I left that one out. So we'll move on to, I think, what was a big event in our careers, and that was one day I got a call from Bill Coppola. This was in 1989, and it was in the fall of '89, and I had already been advised that I was going to be moving to the corporate office come January 1st. So this was like October, November. So Bill called me and he says, "Hey, Jimmy, we had a big breakthrough." And I said, "Well, what's that, Bill?" He said, "Well, Home Depot wants to try out some test stores with our product to see how it goes." So he said, "I want you to personally handle this and take care of it." I said, "Okay, Bill, we'll do." He says, "I want you to get a hold of Barry Silverman." I think he was in Cypress, Cerritos store. So I call Barry, I make an appointment. Well, I got to thinking about it a day or so later, and knowing that I was going to be going to the corporate office, I called Bill back. I says, "Hey, Bill, a couple things here. If I'm going to be leaving in a couple months, I need to bring somebody along with me who kind of can run with this Home Depot thing." Now we got a guy named Barry Silverman. I think that might be a little bit of the Jewish persuasion. I'm not sure, but then I got this other guy over here, Mark Powell, and Bill says, "Yeah, that's a really good idea. Why don't you take Mark with you and see how it goes?" So Mark and I go up and we meet Barry, and of course Mark and Barry just hit it off like brothers. I'm telling you, immediately they talked the same language. They really saw eye to eye. It was just amazing how that worked out. So Barry walks us over to a bay and he says, "You can have this bay and this bay," giving us two big bays right off the bat. I mean, that was like big time. So long and short, Mark and I were kind of responsible for Daltile and the Home Depot relationship. Do you know that Daltile has sold well over $1 billion worth of tile to Home Depot? And a lot of that is a credit to you, Mark, and the relationship that you were able to build with Barry and the whole company. I think it paid big dividends for you throughout. I can tell you this, that Home Depot relationship was a lot better than teaching swimming lessons at Cypress your entire life. So, any rate, one of the other cool things about the tile business, Mark, both you and I, we got to meet a lot of really cool people, mentors, people that we grew up with in the business. And, you go on and on and on, talking about the Robert Johnsons and the Bud Newcombs and, the people at Custom Building Products and Bill Coppola. It's a quick Bill Coppola story. So Mark and I used to go to dinner with Bill Coppola, Italian guy. Bill, those of you know him, he's pretty outlandish guy, driver type personality, always in charge. And so Mark and I would be sitting around the table, and there'd be like Charles Baker, Tim Myrie, Pat Sherrock, and we'd all be around the table having dinner with Bill, probably a $2,500 dinner. After we all ate, we had like 3 hours in the restaurant. Out would come the grappa. Bill was a big grappa guy. Had to have grappa after the meal. And I'm not talking about a sip of grappa. And for those of you that have ever had grappa, grappa is kind of like not something you want to drink. It's something you have to drink. And Bill was the guy who made us have to drink it. So we're sitting around the table. Well, Mark and I were smart enough. We always sat by a plant. There would be a corner table. We always had a corner table in Ferraro's, the restaurant, and there was always a plant. I'd be here, and Mark would be here. So we'd be on about our 12th grappa, and Bill would go, "Salut!" and we'd go, "Ooh." And we would throw the grappa in the plant. So, Mark and I were smart enough to get through those kind of dinners, because if we'd have drank all that grappa, we might not have got through. But anyway, and on, the Harold Turks, I think I mentioned Robert Johnson, really great people. Another guy that I had a relationship with, and I'm not sure if you knew him or not, but that was Ben Malloy. And when I was in corporate, Ben was a sales rep for Atlas Concord, and they had a particular line of tile called Antique Aroma, and I wanted that line, but he had given it to Laughlin. I think Laughlin maybe had 7, 8 locations at the time. They were probably doing $1 million to $1.5 million a year. So for at least a year, every time I saw Ben, I said, Ben, I want that Antique Aroma. I want that Antique Aroma. And eventually he went back to Laughlin and said, look, Dow's really after me to get this line, and you guys are moving $1 million, $1.5 million. So I got to give the line to Daltile. You can keep it too, but they're going to have it. Long and short, we did $14-15 million worth of Antique Aroma, which was a lot of business in those days. But more importantly, it got Ben's foot into Daltile, and you know where I'm going with this. This is kind of the birthing, if you will, of where you ended up your career. So back to the relationship part. Those relationships that we acquired over all those years were certainly very valuable in us getting where we got to in life. So kind of, I know this is, I don't want to get long. I could go on like several hours here. I won't do that to you, Marcus. But the other thing I'd like to talk about is the things that we got to do because we were successful in our careers. You know, trips to Bandon Dunes, trips to Augusta National. And now, you know, I see what you're getting to do every day, Mark, where a month or two ago you were in Italy with Lawrence and just having a great time and taking the family on trips and, you know, all of those kind of things. And so, boy, when I think back about our careers, we are two fortunate guys. And I know that I feel very fortunate to have had the relationship with you. 47 years now, we've been close, and we'll be close till the day we get together in heaven and probably shoot our first even par round of golf. So again, Mark, I just want to congratulate you on your retirement, say very happy birthday to you, and to all those that are here partying with Mark today. Be thankful that you have had the opportunity to have a relationship with such a great man. He has been very successful, and he always will be. Now, today is Thanksgiving morning, so of course we're celebrating Thanksgiving, but I also have to point out that I have my cowboy shirt on. So I'm going to finish this with, let's go Cowboys. Happy Thanksgiving, all.